Hey, what's up guys? Today, I'll show you a thriller horror film, Fantasy Island. Spoiler ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a blonde girl in the darkest night, running and screaming for help as if someone is hunting her. Only her voice fills the eerie atmosphere until she reaches a white mansion and hides under the desk. Then a telephone rings out of nowhere, catching her attention to share the frightening situation. However, her faith goes down after figuring out that the man on the telephone is part of the people chasing her. Shortly, a group of men finally pulls her, eliminating her hope of survival. No matter how hard the girl fights, she will now become a guest, depicting an unknown misery and horrifying fantasy on the island. One day, a lady named Ms. Assistant enjoys the peaceful ambience of the sea. Seconds later, she immediately recognizes a plane coming towards the mysterious place. With such excitement, Ms. Assistant briskly runs to share the news with the Fantasy Island's head, nicknamed Mr. Ambassador. As a result, Mr. Ambassador orders his personnel to assist the 5 guests. A little later, the Fantasy Island welcomes the guests, who are winners of their game. The first guest, Melanie, steps out of the plane and is mesmerized by the structure of nature. The following 2 guests are step-siblings, JD and Brax, who seem ready to explore the Fantasy Island. The last 2 guests invited to the Fantasy Land are Patrick and Gwen. Upon arriving, Ms. Assistant gleefully greets the newly arrived, explaining the island's mechanics. She greatly emphasizes how the said place can grant the desire of their one big fantasy, and that all things become surreal. Astonished by the luxurious wonders, the 5 guests enjoy and settle in their designated rooms. As this happens, an older man named Mr. Investigator is secretly staring and spying on the guests in the forest, as if he wants to warn them about what the island can bring. Next, each guest reaches their room and is ready to fix their luggage items. Meanwhile, Melanie glances at a picture of her past relationship as a sign of longingness. On the other hand, Gwen curiously asks how the island can make their fantasy a reality. Ms. Assistant only emphasizes that their lives will change forever as their aspiration progresses. While Ms. Assistant tries to go back to the seashore to enjoy the view, a drop of blood flows through her nose, which seems to tell a puzzling moment. In the meantime, Gwen stays in her assigned room to change her outfit. An alarming tension begins to arise when she notices footprints on the floor. She roams at every corner, only to witness a burnt man in the mirror. Everything appears normal when she turns her head to see the real thing. When the night gets darker, the 5 guests meet at the welcoming area to have some conversations and familiarization with each other. They all wonder how the island can offer their deepest desire. Not long after, Mr. Ambassador enters the room to officially recognize and greet the 5 guests to the Fantasy Island, where their wishes become visible. He then stresses that each guest can only have one fantasy, and only the island knows how it will happen. When the guests are about to sleep, the time has come for the step-siblings' fantasy to start. Mr. Ambassador brings the step-siblings to their greatest wish, based on what they have written on the questionnaire. JD and Brax get perfectly astounded by the graceful rhythms of the outdoor pool party. The energetic commotion and screams of happiness surround the entire place, as the step-siblings' fantasies come to life. Fulfilled, JD enjoyably drinks with the group of girls, while Brax secures the night with several good-looking men. As the party gets intense, Brax suddenly witnesses an image of an approaching terrifying burnt man, but he disappears after a blink of an eye. So he only thinks it could be the drink's effect or the biggest secret of the island. The following day, Gwen gets woken up by 1 personnel for a short interview with Mr. Ambassador. Since it is Gwen's turn, Mr. Ambassador clarifies the answers written on the questionnaire. Intrigued by the island's ability, Gwen undoubtedly shares that she has the biggest regret of rejecting his ex-boyfriend in a marriage proposal many years ago. Mr. Ambassador quickly introduces a room, a chance to change the moment Gwen regrets the most. Without any hesitation, Gwen tries to comfort herself by entering the door. As she gets closer to the door, a black water suddenly drops from nowhere, signifying an enigmatic event. When Gwen opens the door, she can't believe she sees the scene of her unsuccessful marriage proposal. There, Gwen meets her ex-boyfriend on a romantic date. Confused, Gwen thinks this could be just an illusion or another guy role-playing. However, the ex-boyfriend acts real, just like the good old days. Consequently, Gwen approaches Mr. Ambassador that these are nonsense, as this will not change her fate. With great emphasis, Mr. Ambassador states that fantasy can be natural as they perform it. Simultaneously, Melanie and Patrick relax in the garden while waiting for their fantasy's turn. Thrilled by the mechanics, Patrick shares his childhood dream of wanting to become a soldier or part of the armed services. He expresses that an incident in the past killed his dream. Next, Melanie unhesitatingly shares her fantasy of wanting to have revenge on her childhood bully. She conveys that the most popular girl in school demolished her simple teenage journey, and that the Fantasy Island will help her feel satisfied. After moments of sharing their heart's deepest desire, Mr. Ambassador interrupts the conversation since it's Melanie's fantasy time. Mr. Ambassador provides a direction and location for Melanie to begin the wish she aspires to. Last minute, Melanie asks for permission to vlog her fantasy. Without delay, Melanie proceeds to the secret room and rides an elevator. She recognizes drops of black water, as if an unknown element is approaching. Seconds later, the elevator slides open and brings her to a dark basement. There she records herself as she begins her greatest torturous aspiration. She turns on the light and sees her tormentor named Bully Girl, tied up in a two-way glass mirror. Believing it was just a realistic hologram, Melanie executes her revenge plan by pressing a button that electrocutes and pours toilet water on Bully Girl. With various options of revenge, another controller showcases a clip of Bully Girl having a secret affair with another man, which gets posted on her Facebook account. Melanie clicks another button that reveals a clip of Bully Girl's husband, who's expressing disappointment that Bully Girl has been missing for 2 days already. Hearing the message from Bully Girl's husband, Melanie suddenly realizes that it's not a hologram, but the actual Bully Girl inside. She immediately calls for Mr. Ambassador to end everything, as she only wishes it to be a fantasy. It's then revealed that the blonde girl shown in the beginning is Bully Girl, who has been abducted before the arrival of the 5 guests to make the fantasy realistic. Meanwhile, Patrick's fantasy of wanting to be a soldier begins when Mr. Ambassador sends him to the middle of the forest. When Patrick is now alone in the middle of the forest, Mr. Investigator approaches him to send him a warning about the chaos. Not long after, a group of armed men captures Patrick, as if they are currently in a war setting. The mysterious wishes of each guest now expand on the island. The step-siblings cherish every minute of the pool party. On the other hand, Gwen sincerely talks to her ex-boyfriend, telling him there's no need to pretend or play the game. But the ex-boyfriend acts real and starts proposing again. This time, Gwen undoubtedly utters yes and goes with the flow of her fantasy. Simultaneously, the step-siblings explore the corners of the mansion and find a secret room filled with guns and grenades. They think everything is possible, so they try firing it in the middle of the sea. As this happens, Patrick gets captured by a group of armed men wandering in the middle of the forest. Surprisingly, Patrick recognizes his deceased father, who never recognizes him. Shocked by the turn of events, Patrick shouts Mr. Ambassador's name, as this is not what he has been asking. Patrick then states to his father to stop acting. Moreover, the father questions why his name appeared on Patrick's necklace. Amidst the interrogation, another civilian emerges in the forest, showering them with bullets and his bulletproof muscles. Confused by the chaotic episode, Patrick gets wounded, making him unconscious for moments. The nightmare resumes in each fantasy when a masked man enters the glass room to humiliate Bully Girl. The masked man reveals himself as Dr. Torture, ready to inflict suffering on the subject. With all the turmoil, Melanie stops and deceives Dr. Torture, intending to save Bully Girl instead. She breaks the glass room and frees Bully Girl out of the death situation. In the meantime, step-siblings have their best moments in life by having a drink with hump men and voluptuous girls. However, the borrowed happiness turns into misery when one of the hump men gets shot from nowhere. Tension materializes as they run from possible danger on the island. Brax even calls Mr. Ambassador for the said problem, but Mr. Ambassador only entails that it was just a drug cartel group who formerly owned the mansion. Seconds later, the drug cartel group arrives at the villa, making the step-siblings surrender for their lives. The seeming agony on the island grows when Dr. Torture catches Melanie and Bully Girl in the middle of a dark forest. Luckily, Mr. Investigator stabs Dr. Torture and helps them survive the threatening night. For a moment, Gwen treasures her night with her ex-boyfriend after the successful marriage proposal in her fantasy. However, the solemn night gets disturbed when Gwen sees a horrifying burnt man in her dreams. The same terrifying episodes occur to Patrick after witnessing a vision of a burnt man choking him. He then wakes up and gets freed by his father. An emotional encounter arises when the father confronts Patrick for having a photo of himself with his son and Patrick's things. Patrick attempts to spill the truth by saying it was his child's picture. He also shares how his father died before in a Venezuela war, which is their destination the next day of his fantasy. Concurrently, Gwen wakes up the next day, who is now married and has a 5-year-old daughter with her ex-boyfriend. She begins wondering and expresses her confusion to Mr. Ambassador. She then realizes that the island makes her wish to become real, but she feels incomplete. Meanwhile, Patrick and the armed men walk to their next destination, Venezuela. Another disruption surfaces when the father decides to go home after knowing the cause of his death. Patrick hardly convinces his young father to stay in the battle, as no one will save the other men except his father, who died from embracing the exploding grenade a few years ago. The father ignores the requests, which results in a fight until Patrick finally persuades him. The turmoil remains when the step-siblings get hostage by the drug cartel. The cartel leader interrogates both of them about the cash and guns in the mansion. When the cartel leader threatens their life, they trick the entire drug cartel by telling them the money is in the garage where weapons are located. As this happens, Gwen suddenly realizes a thing in the past, so she requests a new fantasy, but Mr. Ambassador declines. In the middle of the forest, Melanie and Bullet Girl travel to the island's core with the help of Mr. Investigator. After several hours of looking, they finally arrive at the cave where the fantasy fountain resides. Melanie once more recollects her past after seeing a photo on her phone. As they walk the tight spaces of mystery, Melanie gets distracted by a burnt man, which suddenly fades. The face of their desire emerges every time they look at the fountain of fantasy. Bullet Girl sees a vision of a happy life with her husband. Then Mr. Investigator fetches black water from the fountain to reveal the island to the world before destroying it. He also explains that the people in the fantasy eventually turn into black-eyed zombies. In the middle of the conversation, Bullet Girl discovers that Melanie is a guest on the island. Surprisingly, the fountain showcases Melanie's fantasy of rooming and torturing Bullet Girl as revenge. Seeing the selfish desire, Bullet Girl gets disappointed, but Melanie objects that she was the first victim and has the right to do vengeance. Before the argument gets intense, Melanie decides to return to the hotel to escape the island. In the meantime, Gwen approaches Ms. Assistant, who is coughing blood. She begs Ms. Assistant to help her execute her real fantasy, to save someone from a past tragedy. Fortunately, Gwen convinces Mr. Ambassador about her absolute dream from past regret. A little later, Gwen proceeds to a room, bringing her back to the regretful yesterday. She faces a situation where a tragic fire consumes the entire building and wants to save her neighbor, Nick, from burning. Gwen runs upstairs, but alarmingly sees Brax and JD in the fantasy, who are running away from the building. She also notices that the door is locked, so she calls for help from the authority. There she sees Patrick, who refuses to do anything because of the danger of the fire. Gwen courageously attempts to help Nick, but the thick smoke makes it impossible. At the same time, Brax manages to trick the cartel leader by getting a weapon as a defense. On the other side of the forest, Dr. Torture attempts to kill Bullet Girl again until Mr. Investigator sacrifices by throwing himself and Dr. Torture over the cliff. As the fantasy resumes, Brax manages to control the drug cartel using a grenade. Patrick's fantasy crosses Brax's desire, leading to an encounter. Patrick and the armed men help the step-siblings fight the drug cartel. An exchange of bullets transpires during a fight until all the cartel group dies. Unfortunately, the cartel group rises again as zombified individuals attack the guests. The saddening moment occurs when JD and Patrick's father get killed by the zombified drug cartel. In a while, Melanie expresses an apology for including Bullet Girl in the misery. They then return to the torture room in order for Bullet Girl to contact her husband for a plane rescue. A few moments later, Brax and Patrick go to the basement, and they all plan to escape. A revelation floats when Gwen's current fantasy advances. She cannot save Nick from the fire, allowing her to realize an enigmatic truth. She now understands that they are all part of someone's fantasy. The taste of their grandest vision gradually becomes a nightmare. The guests gather at the hotel to confront Mr. Ambassador. Amidst the heated argument, Gwen interrupts to reveal the truth that this is his neighbor Nick's fantasy. She shares that each guest contributes to Nick's death during the fire incident by doing nothing. It's then revealed that Gwen accidentally started the fire incident. The step-siblings were Nick's roommate who left him, Patrick, who did nothing, and Melanie, who was supposed to attend a date but backed out that time. It's also showcased that the burnt man emerging into their vision is actually Nick. Afterward, the guests run after recognizing the plane, which gets demolished by drug cartels. The guests run out of the hotel to save their lives from the scary place. They brainstorm each solution until they all agree to break the fantasy fountain through a grenade. They wander the darkest atmosphere of the cave. Each guest fights their personal episodes and demons in the form of zombified individuals. Nick's illusions interrupt Gwen, while another zombie fights Patrick. When Patrick wins over the zombified creature, Melanie arrives in front, only to stab him multiple times. The massive truth blooms when Melanie declares that it was all her fantasy to ruin the lives of the people who get involved in the death of her loved one, Nick. She emphasizes how her world becomes shattered after the fire incident. Not long after, Gwen and JD quickly steal the bomb and runs toward the fountain. There they meet Mr. Ambassadors, who stop them from ruining the well. Gwen comprehends that Ms. Assistant is Mr. Ambassador's wife in a fantasy, who's now dying of an illness. Mr. Ambassador has to stop them, so he disables the grenade to keep the fountain alive. Seconds later, he gets persuaded by Ms. Assistant to end the chaos of all innocence. Persistent, Melanie still seeks revenge until Mr. Ambassador wants to help by saying that each person will have one fantasy after drinking the black water. So Bullet Girl immediately drinks the black water and envisions Melanie and Nick being together forever. Shortly, zombified Nick hastily drags Melanie into the water. But before everyone can escape, Melanie detonates the grenade, which Patrick selflessly covers for everyone's safety. The movie ends with Gwen, Bully and Brax waking up in the luxurious hotel and finally achieving their freedom. They commemorate Patrick's heroic act like the way his father died. When the guests are about to ride the plane, Brax decides to stay and becomes the new assistant to see JD, his stepbrother, alive. Indeed, the movie depicts the price of our deepest desire in the place of possibility, named Fantasy Island. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.